Hello. Just noticed that there's a cable in the way. All good now. Also, I apologize. For some reason, my neighbor's been very loud these days, and I don't know what to do about it. So maybe you will hear them, maybe you won't. I'm trying to ignore them. Hey everyone, how are you doing? The live stream's a little bit like a little bit delayed, so you might hear me and see me a little bit delayed, and I will see what you say a little bit delayed. So, but all good. If you can hear me, can you hear me? I hope everything's fine. The quality is fine, hopefully. And yeah, today is our 4th live stream. And you painted so far, what did we paint? I don't even have it here. But we painted tulips, we painted butterfly, popsicles, and today, because it was so raining and it was super cold, I felt like let's paint something cozy that everyone's likes, hopefully. And I thought it would be fun to paint something like this. So this is a teacup, an example, like you can use the technique and create again everything that you want, different colors, different designs, everything like that. I included tea, coffee, and cafe latte, and I hope you enjoyed. I will show you the technique, and you can recreate the way you want it. I also felt like it's also a cool like card. Like for example, if you paint it on one extra sheet, for example, like that, you could use this as a card or this as a card, or like as a poster. But I also like that, maybe even like that. However you prefer, place them however you want. It's just an idea. So I hope you enjoy this idea. Again, Noelle is in the chat. She's the troll police. And also make sure she helps me with answering any questions that you have and everything like that. So, well, it was loud here. And yeah, and I hope you join and paint along. And she will also make sure that Noelle will make sure that the chat is as spam free as possible. So we will see how this goes because there are a lot of people here. So yeah, let me tell you, where are you guys from? Let me know in the comments. I see many people are from India, America. Let me see here, Greece. Oh, there's something late here. I love tea. Yeah, because I was actually wanted to paint coffee first, and I was like, but I also like tea, and not everyone likes coffee, so I'll include everything. Kind of, you can also design everything you want, like any colors you want, tea types. Italy, Canadian, England, France, Mexico, Algeria, Brazil, Germany, Romania, Australia. Wow, everything. Australia must be like, is it like already Sunday, I think, right? Philippines, Pakistan. Awesome. So I will start showing you guys what you will need for the tutorial. Maybe you are not ready yet. You want to prepare things. So everything is super like basic basic supplies. So nothing super fancy. So for the paper, it's actually one of my last sheets of this paper here. This is the Strathmore watercolor. This was the butterfly from last time. Actually, this was like already empty. So this will be the paper. So watercolor paper, cold pressed, doesn't have to be any fancy paper because I wanted to just focus on painting and exploring different techniques and also loosen up because I felt like I also tend to do this sometimes where I'm focusing so much on detail and I'm trying to make everything like super polished or a certain way, where I also see people do that where they try to copy something and make it look exactly like the reference, and it looks like you sometimes lose the essence of watercolor, where you just want to capture the moment or something like, for example, a cup or coffee where, I mean, it's not completely like perfectly round or completely perfectly shaded or anything like that. It's like the essence that you want to portray, like this bubbly things or maybe the design. So this is all about, and today we're going to practice just to have fun and loosen up a little bit, and also not try to make everything super detailed and neatly done. So yeah, is there any substitute for watercolor paper? Watercolor paper is made for watercolor, so it will work the best. Some people use some, like, I think it's like washi paper, but yeah. Sorry guys, my neighbors are so loud today. It's really distracting, and I don't know why, but whenever I hear someone, for example, like have a heating fight, or they're shouting, or they're throwing stuff, I feel like I feel the negativity in my own home, and it's just like not nice at all. So can acrylic brushes be used for watercolor as well? You can, but they're usually not as great because they're synthetic. They're not made to hold water and paint like watercolor, so you won't have much more difficulties painting because they just don't hold much water. They splash all the water onto the paper. So I always encourage to use proper watercolor supplies, like a watercolor brush. For example, I'm using again my silver black velvet brush in size 8. This is I think it's a blend of different types of bristles. I learned how to pronounce it. I'm so proud of myself. So this is the silver black velvet, and the cool thing is that it has a nice fine tip and can hold a lot of water. So basically the watercolor brush is like a sponge that soaks up water and paint, and then it releases it evenly. Like, for example, if you use brushes for acrylic, they're not meant to release the water evenly and beautifully and everything. They just push the paint around basically. But here you actually want to make sure that you have even a paint application or water application. So then this is one of the tools. Then I'm going to walk you through everything. I'm going to use my Van Gogh watercolor set. It's pretty messy, but I'm trying to clean it a little bit today. Also, I ran out of a few colors because because I'm working on my book, I have to switch around between different colors because I ran out. And just for me, more important the colors and the quality than having like one specific type of brand of colors. Like, I like to, whenever I talk about color mixing, I focus on the colors that go well together, rather than exactly what pigment or whatever it is. Just make sure the quality is fine and the colors, I have variety of colors that I need to mix. So but here you don't need many colors. Like here, for example, I'm gonna use burnt umber and burnt sienna for coffee foam and everything. So this is basically some colors that you don't use a lot, but they're still very important. And also these blues, like this is what was that? I think it was Syrian blue, I think, or Prussian blue. Yeah, Syrian blue was that. And this was Matter Lake Deep, and this is Payne's Gray, but it doesn't matter. Like, you can use any color you want, pretty much. And then, so these are the colors, but you can use anything that you have. And if you have any questions about like what supplies are great, and I don't know, like, I'm following your tutorials, but I still struggle, everything just looks streaky or a certain way, check out my guide to watercolor supplies. I think it's linked in below this video, or go to makoccino.com. There are plenty of guides that you can download for free. Yeah. So then next, what do we have? We have, for the circles, you can either draw it with like freely. You don't have to make it super perfectly round. You can also use something like a small bowl, or a small like a washi tape, a tape, something that's round that you can trace. So here I use this little bowl because I like to have something, because I don't like to use any compass or anything like that, because it just makes a hole in it. So I like to trace anything if I want a specific shape. I only have brown. Is that fine? Yes, that's fine. Like you, in one color, there's so many different shades or so many values that you can use. So that's totally fine. And yeah, then what else? Also, if you only have one brown, you can also maybe you have, for example, gray. You can mix it in and just play around with different mixtures. So yeah, you can play around with it. So then we have also pencil to outline, eraser. If you want to erase something, again, you want to be careful with that. And of course, paper towel or tissue paper because you're working with water and paint, and this really does help you to control the amount of water and paint you're using. Because sometimes I feel like people forget that there are certain ways how you can control it, and if they feel like they can't control it at all. So remember tissue paper or paper towel, and again also of course clean water. I always use 2 jars of water. One is for clean and dirty water. So I rinse off my brushes in one jar and then I pick up clean water from my other jar. So it's everything's clean. All right. Does mixed media paper work for watercolor? It does work, but it still doesn't, like there are so many different qualities. So it will work, but you might not get the same results as someone else who, for example, uses cotton paper that's made for watercolor, like watercolor cotton paper, for example. They're totally different to mixed media paper. So the paper is like it's the foundation. So you want to make sure that like you're aware of the qualities and that's not your fault when something doesn't work out. Because usually it's the materials that you're using that are causing you any problems and things like that. All right. I hope everyone has your supplies. And then we can start. So I have my paper here. I kind of outline a little bit where I want to place my tea, coffee, and latte. So let's start with creating the cups, the mugs, and also I'm sorry for the lights changing a little bit because it's so gloomy today. It was raining and sunny. It's raining again, so it's all over the place. All right, so oops. And then, okay, so I'm going to use my bowl to outline the cups. So I will just place them here, quickly outline. So we start with one circle. So this is going to be the shape for the mug. It's kind of weird to say for me for some reason. And then one is here. This is basically the outer. Oh, it's kind of difficult to do this. I have a tripod literally in my face. It's a little bit tricky. And then here. All right, so it doesn't have to be, it's just like an outline. I mean, you will paint later and change things up, maybe. All right. Why does everyone want to make her hurry? Let her talk. Yeah, it's kind of like it's a little bit a balance because I know some people are impatient, some people are like feel like I'm going too fast. So there's a little like I hope you can still follow along. So these are going to be the outer circles for the coffee or tea mugs, and then you want to create another circle that is slightly inside. This is going to be the shape of the mug, so the thickness kind of. And then inside, and we will also have another circle that is the area where the tea or the coffee is. So we have a little bit of this top area of the mug, and then also the inside of the mug, and then we have this tea or coffee. So if you have created your circles, if you want to paint one, you just create one circle, and then create another circle inside. So just a little bit. So remember here we have the mug's thickness. Like you can either, depending on how thick you want to make the rim or the edge or the rim. Just like it doesn't have to be perfect. Just like outline with short pencil lines. Just to have some guidance here. A guideline. So here. And then do this with the other ones. And then once you have the circle inside to create like the outer shape and the thickness of the mark, you want to create another one. So this is where the coffee and the tea will be. So you know exactly where everything is, and you don't have to feel like, oh, no, I ran out of space. So here, I mean, here's the mark is a little bit thinner than this one, but it's fine. And then I draw another circle inside. So the space is pretty much the same. I mean, if you, for example, want to make the mark even a little bit less full, then you make the circle smaller. So there's like a little bit of coffee left, kind of, and it goes like inside. So. Also, if you have any questions along the painting session, you can post them in the chat, and then I will try to answer them. I can't reply to everything, but I'll make sure that at least the important parts about the tutorial are covered. So I kind of made it a little bit. This is, for example, I feel like this is a little bit too small, like compared to here. So I'm gonna just fix this a little bit, because there's not enough space for my coffee. And again, here, for example, I'm using this is a water soluble pencil. So everything will disappear once I cover it with paint. But you want to make sure, if you don't want the lines to be visible later, you want to slightly erase it, because otherwise after you paint with watercolors, you can't really erase it later, because the paint will just be on top of your pencil lines, and then you can't erase it later. Which pencil do you recommend for sketching out outlines for watercolors? I usually just use any like HB pencil and just lightly outline something, and then because I feel like some people, I mean, it depends really on your style and things like that, but I like, for example, with HB pencil, and then if I'm done with the sketch, I erase a little bit so I don't see it much, just a little bit so I know where to place the paint. And then when I paint, it's not that visible. And here, for example, this is a graphite aquarelle pencil that dissolves in water. So this is an HB pencil, but again, it dissolves in water. Sometimes it's not that good, because if you paint and paint and paint, then it disappears, and then you can't really see what you outlined. So this is just for like the beginning, not for multiple layers or something like that. You would need to reapply the pencil. All right, so, and then we're going to, now we have the circles. I also want to add these handles. Now I place them a little bit, one here, one here, one here. You can also place them in the same spot. I don't know, I kind of like it to have it a little bit of a variety. But here you just want to apply like a basic, how it's called, like square, this shape of a, yeah, here, like so. And then you connect it at the end. It's a little bit slightly round. So this is kind of like the round shape. So that you have the handle, and then where it goes, like creates this round shape of a handle, you make it round, because usually the handle is round or has a round shape, but some might have different shapes. But here I will just make it like this. You can make it longer or shorter. I think I will make it a little bit shorter. So just like it's like a two parallel lines, and then you have this C-shape kind of round shape at the end. And here I would do the same on the other side, just a little. I will do this here. You can also paint it here or here, wherever you want. Again, these two lines, and then connect them with a curve. And then here, like the whole point is really to sketch here and paint loosely, because I feel like sometimes, as I said earlier, we tend to overwork stuff and try to get lost in all the details, and then kind of loses the whole watercolor look. You completely lose it. And I really love the effect of watercolors, and watercolors all about the watercolor. It's not don't want to just copy something and where you don't really see if is this watercolor or is it something completely else. What paint do you usually use? I use usually currently Schminke, Daniel Smith, and sometimes I try different watercolors all the time. So now we're going to start layering our paint. I have my watercolor jars here. Now I will start with the inside, and then we will move on from one side to the other one to the other one, and then we repeat. So everything has its time to dry. So for the first one, I have tea. So for the tea, I'm gonna use, I have again, this is a Van Gogh watercolor set, and you can use any color you have, or any paint set you have right now. So I'm gonna use this yellow ochre. Oh yeah, I think I forgot to mention like yellow ochre, and for tea. But for example, maybe you want to, it's not tea for you. Maybe you want to make a tomato juice in a mug, or you want to add, I don't know, like something completely different that's colorful. It doesn't have to be a brown. You can red, pink, blue, whatever you want, really. It's just I want to show you the technique. What can I do if I don't have a porcelain palette? You can use just a plate, like a white plate. All right, so now I'm gonna, because usually watercolor paper, this type of paper, this watercolor Strathmore, it dries really fast. So I want to give myself a little bit more time. So what I'm gonna do, I will create one layer of water here. Just apply it here where I had the inner circle. So I was starting with the inner circle. For some reason, I think I forgot to clean my brush properly, but that's okay. Because we are kind of painting with muddy colors, so it's not super important right now. Well, actually, it does bother me a little bit, so I'm just gonna quickly remove it. But so just like a layer. Also, you want to make sure it doesn't really pull a lot, just one layer a little bit. And then I'm gonna use my yellow ochre. So yellow ochre is really like a very opaque kind of color, but it has so much power in it, so you can really dilute it and make it more transparent. And that's what I'm gonna do here in my mixing palette. And so I'm just gonna apply it to the circle, and want to make sure that I create a loose transition between dark and light. So here, for example, I want to make the left side darker and some areas lighter. So I would just move my paint around and keep some areas lighter. So here, for example, on this side, I will move this paint around, but kind of also lift it off a little bit from my paper. So I keep the light shade here. So we're not going for any like flat washes or anything. The brush size is 8, so it doesn't really, because you paint so small, you can even just use a 6 or something. And the numbers are not always universal, so it really depends on the brush and the company. And then, so this is the base. And then I'm gonna pick more paint from my palette. So this is the yellow ochre again. Just make sure I don't have like, it's not too dark. And then I apply it again. So here on this side is going to be a little bit darker. So I'm applying it here again, like on this side, and just move it around to the other side here. And I also want to keep some light reflections in. So this is, we can always lift off paint. So it's don't freak out if you, for example, have something that's darker or lighter, where like you can always fix it by lifting off paint. So I'm gonna kind of like the light reflects here, so I'm trying to move it a little bit so you can see. And then I'm just outlining the circle again. So I have like different areas, like something's darker, something's lighter, because there's like always like this play of light and reflection, and where the tea looks darker and lighter. So this side will be like this. And then what I'm going to do, I'm just rinsing off my brush with clean water, and then tap off some of the excess water and just use the rest of the paint that is on the paper to just lightly blend out, just to make sure there's like nice soft transitions. And I also keep a little bit of white space for the reflection. So here, for example, I have this like small area where a little bit of light reflects. I will just keep this like in place, and then just blend this out a little bit. And again, we're not going for any like super smooth, perfect dried areas. It's okay if it's like there's any like harsh line or looks a little bit streaky or something like that. That's totally fine, because I feel like this is the whole point of this exercise, to loosen up a little bit, not to try to make it super like perfect or super realistic. It's like a sketch rather, like a copy of a mug. And then I think I will add a little bit more paint because I don't see the reflection here on this side. So just use a little bit more of my yellow ochre just to layer the paint and make it darker. So here, for example, I don't see the reflection on this side. So I'm just adding a little bit paint on top and just outline basically the reflection. So I can see it better and move the paint again around. And sometimes, for example, the problem with like working with wet and wet is that sometimes some areas tend to dry quicker than the others because you applied more paint or less water or whatever. The paper also doesn't hold much water, or it's so hot in the room. So it's always like this, you need to always adjust to your paper, to your temperature in the room and stuff like that. So you can never predict how everything is. So this paper especially dries pretty quickly. So yeah, so for example, here I still don't really see this reflection because the paint is still wet, so it moves. So what you can do is you can rinse off your brush, clean it, and then remove the excess moisture from the brush, and then lift off some of the paint. So then it's a lot easier because then you reveal the white of the paper again. And if you feel like, okay, the paint still moves, then it's okay. You can wait a little bit and see how the paint looks. And then lift off any areas that, for example, didn't move back, for example. Just blend some areas a little bit. And you can adjust, like, for example, you can add a little bit more shadow somewhere, but you still want to keep some areas lighter, so it's like a little bit more interesting, not just flat. All right, so I think I keep it this way for now. Because, for example, here we also have a little bit of reflection. I don't know if you can see this. I also created a reflection on the side of the mug, but I will do this later because it's a little dangerous to do it now. So we'll do this later once everything's dry. Now for the coffee, this I think is my favorite part because I like the bubbles, kind of the foamy part here. And so to create the coffee, you basically want to use, here I think I've used, this was what was it called here? I always forget names from this one, burnt umber. But I mix it a little bit with ochre to make it slightly brownish, more brownish, but not so brown. It's still a little bit of like a little bit yellowish. And here I will also first apply a little bit of water to the whole cup. Again, to the middle, to this the middle circle, just to give yourself a little bit more time to work. And otherwise, I also felt like some in my last tutorials, last live sessions, a lot of you had like it was always like 50-50. Some people had more success with the wet and wet technique. Some enjoyed or had better success with wet on dry. I feel like painting wet on wet is always like, I feel like it works the best. And yeah, so basically I have one layer, and then I'm going to use this pre-mixed brown yellowish color and apply it to the left side here. This is going to be the foam area. I think I will add a little bit of yellow because it's a little bit too brown still. And then just adjust it, add it to the side, and then keep it a little bit thicker, and then make everything else. Like for example, here you can see this, there's a lot of foam in this area, so I make this yellow brown area thicker, and then I create this kind of like this moon shape where it goes, turns a little bit slimmer, like more narrow to this side. And also here. So again, like you want to have this loose paint application, not like make everything super like super perfect. Just have some paint here and leave it like that, and then you can still adjust things later if you want. So this is the base for the foam, and now you want to use, again, I forgot the name, burnt sienna, right? Burnt umber. No, burnt umber. I don't know. I always mix my names. I don't know what's wrong with me. Gonna use this burnt umber, right? Burnt umber. What's wrong? Burnt umber. Yes. This is going to be the coffee. I will just use a little bit more water, so I don't, because this paint, like this Van Gogh set, is very, very easy to lift off, and so it kind of gets chalky if you don't dilute it with water. And then I apply it right on top here to this area, and let it slightly blend into my orangey brown color, like so. And just remove some moisture from my brush to make sure I have control of where the color bleeds in. So here I don't want to like bleed them too much into the foam area. So I'm just soaking up some of the paint and water. And then I can go ahead and pick up more paint, a little bit more water so it's not so chalky, and just apply it on top here. Again, to make it a slightly darker. So. Again, don't forget to keep some of the, like this moon shape that you created earlier. You want to keep this. And then we'll just, and this light today is not great. Let me see if I can adjust something. So it's so gloomy today. What's the weather where you are? Like it was so hot the last few weeks and so sunny, no cloud at all, and now it's raining, and then it's sunny again, raining, sunny again. Super annoying. Like here. No, I can't really change anything with this flicker either. I don't know what's wrong. I hope it's still fine. You can see what I'm doing. Just gonna pick up some of the paint that's bled out too much. Like I really like how it creates this soft transition between those colors. So this is actually pretty good because then we can add this foamy part on top. And again, while the paint is still wet, you can apply more paint. Like for example, you can add more, like very straight from the pan on top to make it even darker, for example, or you can add it later once everything's dry, because then you can really layer the paint. And because some people forget that, like I also in the beginning, I didn't really pay attention to it, but watercolors are transparent, and you work in multiple layers to make them vibrant and darker and things like that. So it's fine if something doesn't look super like dark or saturated. Just create another layer on top. Just picking up some of the colors that just to make the transition a bit looser. And again, you can, for example, here I added this light reflection. Again, I did this with a clean damp brush. You just want to clean the brush and then remove some excess water on the paper towel or tissue paper, and then just lift off some of the paint, following the curve. Like you want to make sure that so it looks like it's you keep up the shape and the reflection, how the water reflects and moves and things like that, and how it so it doesn't look weird or anything. Like if you do it some random place, it might look off, but this creates a more realistic look. And again, if the paint moves, it's fine. You just keep lifting off. Maybe I will add some dots here. Maybe here, just a little dot. Why not? So yeah, so this is the base. And now for the foam part, I'm going to use the same color. I will use just a little bit of moisture on the brush and the paint that I still have in my mixing palette. And then if the paint is dry, just make sure that this already dry, this yellowish brown color is dry. And then you just want to add a little bit of water, because this brush doesn't hold the shape when it's wet, dry. And then you want to create these circles, like this, like thick or round big dots. Just focus on them for now, and then apply them on top. So here, for example, I apply one round shape here, and then here maybe just focus on those for now. And add them in the different areas. So along this area that I created. Like so. And then once you have like some of those circles in place, you can make them a little bit smaller in between. So for example, I have these two round shapes here. So I will place my other dot that's slightly smaller somewhere here. And maybe one's like even smaller here. And then one is here. So basically reshaping the foam part by creating those dots on top, like so. And they should be round, like if they are square, it might look a little bit weird, like would look like a stone. But again, you don't want to make it like super realistic or super like perfect, because I still, like I said, like sometimes I get into this phase where I'm like trying to make it look a certain way, and then I'm sitting there trying to make everything super neatly, and then it just loses the whole soul of the painting, because you tried so hard to make everything look perfectly detailed, and then it kind of looks boring for some reason. Like you want to have this imperfection still, because it kind of adds life to your whole painting. So just change up the size again. Some are bigger, some are smaller. So it's kind of like the foamy part in like the ocean, but here we have just coffee in round shapes. So okay, so dots. Okay, I think that's enough. So I think also the leftover paint that I have here, I will use to outline here this area, because I feel like kind of gets lost on this side. So I'm just adding the leftover paint from the dots that I could use for the dots, just to add some shading around my foam part here. So just a little bit, and I think this kind of makes it more in place. So also a good tip is sometimes when I paint something and I'm like, something's weird or something's off or it looks amazing, for example, and then I turn around and feel like, wow, this circle is very not circle-ish. It's like goes to another side. Like, for example, I was painting, I don't know what it was. I think it was a bottle, and I was like, yeah, that looks good. And then I turned it around and saw that the whole one side was totally crooked, and I didn't see this in one perspective, so I needed to move it around. So this is like a good way to see any like things that you want to fix. And again, like for example, if we want to add more dimension, or like you can go ahead and add, for example, some white reflections on top, or even, for example, here I can make them like those dots a little bit darker, just a little bit. If I want to, for example, make it even like add any shadows or something like that into my foamy part, like really you can play around with it. Just have like that. Okay, I think that's enough. Otherwise, I will go into the zone where I'm like keep working on things, even though I should stop. Okay. Can we use regular paper for color pencils? For color pencils, yeah, I think like you don't have to use. Well, I mean, for watercolor, you want to use watercolor paper, but for color pencils, you have, I think, just want to have some paper that's where you can actually draw on. Just watercolors have so many, like they want to have a good foundation and want to have a good environment to like do their thing. It's the most circlish circle ever. Thank you. Okay, so this is going to be the latte. So here I'm going to use similar colors again. And this is going to be in wet and wet. Now you don't have to make this in wet and wet. You can also outline those shapes and keep it white, or keep it, for example, here I use a little bit of this burnt umber first, just so the paper, so this foam part is not just white. I felt like this looks a little bit boring. So what I'm gonna do is, again, I will use just my leftover color here, I think, just a little bit to add one layer of paint and moisture. And again, this is a little bit too dark. Just want to have this layer ready for when I want to add the coffee around. So I'm basically using the negative painting technique here to create this foamy part, like the milk shape, heart shapes. Now you don't have to create this typical leafy heart shape. You can also just do one heart. That's also okay. Like there are so many different ways how you can create this design on the coffee latte. Do you do this every Saturday? So the live streams, the plan was to do today's the last live stream. I don't know if I will do one next week. Just I think just needs a break, because I'm actually working on my book right now, and I felt like I feel a little like I need a break to not paint, or just have like one day off or 2 days off to not work. Even though I like to paint with you and enjoy it, but I feel like I need some rest too. And I usually, like I always say, like, you need to take care of yourself. And if I don't do it myself, it's like, why am I like even saying this? So I want to take my own advice. Mako, will you take a workshop for us? What do you mean by take a workshop for you? I'm working on my course. Like I will be relaunching my watercolor course, where you can learn all about the supplies you need, how to mix colors, different washes, different techniques, how to avoid mistakes, and how to make sure that things are working out. And so this will coming up. So if you're interested, the link to the course is in the description box below. Okay, so this is the base for the coffee. So make sure it's wet and not dry. Or if you want to paint wet on dry, you should let it dry first. But here I'm going to make this wet on wet. So this is the first layer. It's shiny, you can see. And you want to wait a little bit so the paper soaks a little bit of the moisture, but you also don't want to wait too long because otherwise then it will be too dry. Okay, it's kind of hard to explain in one go and not let the paint dry. So again, I'm using this burnt umber here again, and I want to remove some moisture because it will float like crazy otherwise. And I'm starting at the edge here just to see, okay, the color is okay, it doesn't crazily move around. And then I'll create one heart shape like so. If I see, okay, this blooms kinda, I don't want this. It's because there's lots of water, and this happens usually when you have lots of water on the paper. That's fine, I can adjust. I just want to have like one, like a little slight outline so I know where to place my color. And again, if anything happens, for example, if you feel, my paint moves around, I don't understand, don't freak out. You always have your tissue paper next to you where you can remove any unwanted paint explosions. Okay, so I'm going back with my burnt umber and just outline again this heart shape. But I mean, you can also make one big heart. You don't have to create this fancy design. And then there's like this kind of leaf shape, like so around. Kind of like a heart hugging right now. Then there's this other leaf going downwards, and then another leaf. So, and then I just want to fill in the gaps that you outlined for the coffee. I mean, I don't know why I had to take this design because it's not one of the easiest, but I think it's still fun. Kind of like this hugging shape. So, and then you can fill in the rest. I think I need to close my window right now because the sun is burning inside. Now the paper really dries quickly because it's also very hot here right now. But that's fine. Like, okay, how at 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And this is actually also cool that you have these fuzzy outlines because this is like a foam. It's like not a static print on it's like it's a foam basically, and there's a coffee in between, and some coffee gets on the milk shape. So in here you want to connect those here in the middle, because I think they do it like they go with like the nose of the thing that you pour in the milk, and then there's like this connection in the middle where it pulls it towards the center. I'm not the expert on latte. I usually drink my coffee black, so I'm not an expert on foamy coffee. So I don't hope I'm not like embarrassing myself too much. And again, it's fine if there's like if they're patchy, it looks a little uneven. That's fine. Like you want to have it like loose. That's the whole point. And then I will just add a little bit more of this burnt umber, just to add some darker, so it doesn't look one color. There's a little bit of more of the black coffee here. Just blend it out a little bit. So again, it's not just a flat wash, it just blends in here. And also adds like shadows to the whole design. Your drawing is so glossy, mine is rough. Please let me know your suggestions. Drawing is glossy. Mine is rough. What do you mean glossy? And yours not? So just blend it out a little bit. Again, these black, brown areas. Also create this, I think, I don't know, should have used a reference picture for my design, I think. All right, but I think there's like this line where the printing connects. All right. So I think loose enough. Okay. Mine is spreading so it looks like the thing is mixing. Yeah, this is like where you want to make sure you control the water and paint ratio. Let me fix the light here. Kind of annoying. Have this weird setup. I think this is better. Okay. So if it spreads too much, then you make sure that there's not too much water on your paper. And also make sure, like, check how much water there is on your brush. Okay, so now this is the base. Now it's time to create the marks. So here I used the cerulean blue, Payne's Gray, and Red Matter Lake, I think, but you can use any colors. It's kind of like a pinkish red. It's like yours is like shining and mine is not. Shining, it's just the paint. This, if it's shiny, then it's just the paint is still wet. That's why it's shiny. Now it's not shiny anymore. Like you can see, it dries. This is still glossy because it's wet. Not anymore, but. Okay, so now for the mark, I'm gonna use this cerulean blue, and I'm starting with a very light shade of that, and outline the outer circle. So you know we have like this inner circle, then the circle in the middle, and then there's outer circle where we started off, and then just gonna apply a very light shade. Like you can always like swatch before you paint. Is also always a good idea, but here I'm not super picky of how the colors look, so I'm just adding one light shade of this blue, and I think I had some ochre, so my brush was not super clean again. And just outlining it here. And then I'm gonna use a little bit more paint to make the paint more pigmented. So I actually use a darker value of this color, and then I'm just adding it to a few areas because I want to have this loose effect. So I'm adding a little bit of darker paint here to outline the circle, and then another here. But you want to keep the outer circle, like the very, very edge, lighter. So that because there's like the area where it gets the most light. So I'm just keeping this to the other side. So here, for example, this is a little bit too much. Just rinsing off some of the paint, and again, I have my paper towel here, and just adding it here, and then maybe like leave a little bit of space, and add a little like a loose brush stroke around here and here. Like there's no like I want to keep it loose, so don't like Don't if you want to make it also loose, don't try to like carefully outline. Just short brush strokes here and there to outline a little bit, and maybe also blend it out to have this loose effect. I feel like this looks really cool because it's like this watercolory effect, not like flat or anything like that. May I try this on cellulose paper? Yeah, I can do this. This is also not this is not cotton paper that I'm using. I like cotton paper for like when I really want to have something super smooth and I need more time to work on something, and because I feel like you don't have to stress so much when you use cotton paper. Yeah, because cotton paper just like you can relax and focus on applying the paint, not like worrying about now this dried already or this looks patchy. Okay, here I applied my paint way too loose, so this my mark is a little bit wavy, but that's okay. So okay, I'm gonna continue just adding a little bit more paint just to make some areas darker, but still keep some lighter areas. Just, you know, you can see it's very loose. This is what I'm going for. Like if you want to be very, very more illustrative, make it super neatly, then I would suggest you like really use a reference and make sure to study how the light behaves, basically. So you know exactly where to place the colors. Okay, and then I'm gonna use the same Prussian, this cerulean blue, and apply it to the handle here. Now here you want to keep a white space in between the circle and the handle, so there's like this light area, and you don't want to make them blend into each other. Just like this little white area in between. Place the colors. Place the blue color or whatever color you use to create this flat wash. And then I'm gonna use again more paint, just more pigment to make this color more saturated. And just place it right below this white area that I left out. It's kind of like the area that gets less light. And then just make sure that you remove any excess pigments from your brush and moisture so you can actually blend it out a little bit. And then maybe add it here to this area just to create like, because this area is kind of hidden. It gets less light, and then when it goes up, it gets more light. So we have this gradient transition, and maybe one gets here a little bit. And you can also lift any, like if you want to like randomly add some reflection, because I feel like this looks really loose. And the whole exercise is to like just to loosen up a little bit. Because I think I've noticed that a lot of people struggle with that as well, where I want to make it more loose. I feel like I go into detail so much, and then I stress so much about everything. I overwork things. Yes, this is cold pressed watercolor paper. My watercolor does not seem to adhere to the paper. Sometimes it rolls up like a ceramic palette. I'm using watercolor paper and artist grade watercolors. Any ideas? This sounds weird. Like, if it's artist grade watercolor, it shouldn't happen. If maybe you use no, I think it rolls up. Are you sure you're using watercolors? Maybe ceramic palette? Are you talking about the paper? My watercolor does not seem to adhere to the paper sometimes. Yeah, sometimes it sounds like it happens to me when I use hot pressed watercolor paper. Then I feel like it's like there's some like oil or something on top, and then the colors don't attach. Like they don't want to like lay onto paper because the paper is just so smooth, and I don't know what they did with that. So it looks like my fingers were oily, and then there's like this oil on the paper, and now that's why my paint doesn't want to stick. Maybe I use hot pressed paper as well. Maybe that's why. Hope I understood your question. Okay. This is my messy mug. For this other one, I use Payne's Gray, and my Payne's Gray is pretty much empty. But I also do the same. I use one layer of just a light value, like very light gray. And I keep some white areas for the light where the light hits. Keep this white, like very edge. Keep it a little bit white, just to have like some variations between light, mid, and dark. Dark, I mean, and dark. And then again, I have more pigments now on my brush, and then I outline some areas and blend them out again, just very loosely. Sometimes when I paint, I sometimes tend to clean on top or over my paintings, so I can actually see. So here with my tripod right pretty much in my face, it's a little bit uncomfortable to paint, so it might be even messier than I want to make it look. But it's also a good training for myself to like don't too stress about it, just have fun. Are you using only one brush for all colors? Yes, I'm just rinsing off my brush. I'm not changing my brush for if I like change colors. That's the cool thing about watercolors. It's so easy to clean. I'm just adding this black shade, like this Payne's gray, into the middle. Like this, I have in this, like the first circle that we created, the very edge is a little bit lighter, then I have this gray. And then everything that's closer to the coffee area, I made it a little bit darker because it's like the area that doesn't get as much light. But again, this is very loose, so it's like a sketch style pretty much. And I feel like it's so much life to the painting. As I said, sometimes we just try to make everything so perfect that it loses its life. Maybe I don't know. That's why I feel like I enjoy paintings where it's loose. For example, Van Gogh. It's so abstract, kinda, but it moves and has these brush strokes, and it's not like realistically painted, and that's why it adds. Like I feel the painting. I feel the soul of the painting, kind of. I would like to know why you pun water on the paper for painting on it. Put water on the paper for painting on it. It's like it's wet on wet technique, so I can move my paint around, so it makes the paint looks loose and not like static and sharp on the paper, and that gives you more time to work on. Okay. Then we have this left. So here I'm using this pinkish red. Again, I'm just adding one simple light value of, I forgot the handle. I'll fix that in a second. So like my circles are not circlish enough, but we just go with it. My pink to this inner part. Again, very loose. I'm just outlining the inner edge where it gets less light and also creates this sharp outline a little bit. It looks a little bit more three-dimensional, but not too much. Very sketchy, like a loose sketch. Just want to capture the essence kind of a mug. Okay. And then again, I add very dark value of this pinkish red and blend it out with a clean damp brush. You want to, again, don't forget that you have or should have a paper towel or tissue paper with you where you can adjust the moisture on your brush and anything that you want to like lift off, remove, clean, stuff like that. And then see here, the gray here. I forgot this paints gray on this side. Oh, it's a little bit too much. And I'm just using the brush, the damp brush to blend it out. I keep this here. So again, I have the dark area that is right next to the mark. I have it darker, and then it blends out into this middle value shade gray kind of thing. And you can see, for example, here I was very loose, and I actually really like it because you can see there's a little bit of white, a little bit of dark, and I didn't blend it even. And I feel like it adds already such a cool effect. I feel like it looks even better where I blend it out too much, and this has a lot more detail, even though it's very loose. So I feel like I like this more. But that's why it's cool to paint multiple things or something multiple times, just to discover how you can change things or how to make something better. Maybe I can do this here as well. Let's see. I was actually not thinking about how I applied my paint, and then it happened like that. Like here, like maybe something very loose. So I have this little reflection here going on. I think this looks cool. Like, don't be afraid to experiment. Yeah, I think I'll keep it this way. And here, maybe I can also add a little bit of this effect on top. Can you use watercolor on canvas? No, you can't. If it's canvas, it's made for like acrylics or oils. If regular canvases. And for watercolor, you want to have a surface that can absorb the paint, and canvases can, like, it's not working on canvases. If there are canvases made for watercolors, but not the regular ones, it won't work. Okay, so from now we have now here, this is a little bit too light compared to my handle, so I will adjust the intensity of the colors a little bit by just going over again, just very loosely, just brushing it over here, just to make it very loose. Well, a little bit too loose. Okay, I think that's enough. And earlier I said I have this, because this is looks like a little bit like an egg with this white around it. Also made the coffee a little bit too, and the tea, I mean, could made a little bit wider, because it looks like the tea is, the mug is a little bit empty here. So what I'm gonna do is I will use again this ochre color that I used earlier, just a very, very light shade, like this, like a little bit, like a very light value. And then I'm just brushing it over here, just a little bit to this side, to make this not so wide, because the tea is inside and it reflects this color onto the mug. So you have this like this, the color of the tea basically on the walls of the mug. And I think this already looks less like an egg or something like that. Just in the middle of this blue and the yellow tea here. And again, if you, for example, oh no, this is a little bit too dark, I don't like it, you can always lift off the paint with a tissue paper or a damp brush. So like you can clean the brush and then just lift some of the paint and adjust everything that you want. So think this looks already a little bit better. Mako, is it okay to use a white pen for the reflection in the coffee? Yes, like you can use anything, like you can use anything you want, use any technique, and like there are certain rules, but you can use, or like not rules, but like techniques, and then you can do whatever you want with it and adjust to your liking. And it depends also on yourself. Like some people like to use multiple, like for example, colored pencils on top and gel, and maybe like markers or whatever. It really depends. Like there are no really like this is the only way to go or something. And here also I add a little bit of this gray, not gray. And this was a mistake. I wanted to add actually like this brown, but I got distracted by the mark for some reason. So here I'm going to use this color they use for the coffee. And this added here as well to the white area, just to make it less white, to make this coffee reflect onto this mark. And here again as well, just adding a little bit here, very loosely. Like so. And we have these loose cups. Now, I also added this background just to make them a little bit stand out more. You can also do this. So here, for example, if you want to add a background, like you can also, for example, add a plate or something like that, or keep it the way it is. I like to add a little bit of background. So first I apply a little bit of water because I want to have this loose transition and have like, because if you apply paint directly to the paper, sometimes it just dries and then it leaves like weird outlines and it's just harder to move. So I always like to, if I really want to like have time and want to adjust things, I apply a little bit of water just to give myself more time and opportunity to work on my painting. And then I'm gonna use my paint grid. It's pretty much empty, just a little bit. And then I'm starting at the very edge of the mark. And then I want to blend it out towards the sides. So here, for example, let's say it gets less light, it's darker. And again, you can also like make it super realistic. For example, if you have like a blue mark, you want to study how the light, because the blue also reflects on the surface. So there's also like this blue color on the surface. Here I'm just using this paints gray, but you can also use, for example, blue and mix it into the color. It really depends on, like you would need to have a proper reference where you can actually see how the light behaves and what, because there are so many different colors and they're bouncing off each other. There's like blue, and maybe you have like a red source here, and this color, the red also reflects. So there's like a multiple things at once. So here, for example, I added this paint, and I just want to lightly blend out with clean water, but also I also have some paint on my brush, so I just move it around here. Just again, very loose. Like here in my example, very loose, nothing. I don't try to make it like a super soft wash, flat wash or anything, just very loose, very sketchy, and very like I think, I don't know how it's not the urban sketching, but the sketchy feel. I really like it for some reason recently. I think I've seen so many people do that, and I was like, but yeah, I actually really like it because it has really like this soul. They capture the essence of what they are. Like for example, if it's a street or urban sketcher, for example, they don't sit there and paint like all the details. They capture the atmosphere, they capture how something looks or feels, the light, and not necessarily, okay, how exactly does this building look like. The focus may be on the colors and the shape. So that's why I'm trying to be more like that, a little bit more loose in my painting here. So basically, have this darker. I imagine the light source. Maybe, I mean, this is not super realistic here because I don't have a proper like reference where I look to, but I'm just want to play and loosen up a little bit by just focusing on moving the colors and putting out shapes. And this is what you want to do with the others as well if you want to keep this, if you want to create this background. So here I'm connecting those, this gray with my other mark. And here I'm gonna do this as well. Now here, because my mark is also gray, I'll keep a little, need to be a little bit more smart about it. Otherwise, it will look like it will blend into the background. So I'm gonna use more pigments just to create this shadow around. And again, I just use my damp brush and just move this paint around. Very loose. Can you paint a cupcakes in the next video? I don't know, maybe. Need to think about it. These ideas usually come very spontaneously. Like I'm like, okay, what fits? And that's because last time, not last time, but when we painted these ice popsicles, I was like, is it maybe too early? It's not even summer right now, but I think it's still fun to paint. And I mean, cupcakes, there's no season for that, right? What can we use instead of watercolor paper? There's like, it's like a very, like I'm always like the one that would say, no, you really need to make sure you use watercolor paper because you're just wasting your watercolors if you don't use watercolor paper. You can also use thick paper, but you won't get the same result. Like your paint won't move as much, or you won't be able to use the same techniques. It's just not made for watercolors. So that's why if you're like, for example, now you don't have watercolor paper, but you want to buy like soon, then you maybe want, if you have some thick drawing paper or thick mixed media paper, then this will work as well. I think some people also painted on, was it like tea bags or something like that? This could also like work. Yeah, it's a very loose outline. Just keeping the reflections similar. Here, also a little bit around this handle. I mean, there's also should be less light in between those marks, but I will just keep it this way. I think next time when we do this, I think I should bring some reference pictures, and then we can actually study them together and paint them using a proper reference. But painting from a memory or from like just your imagination can also be fun because you don't have these expectations how something needs, or like you sometimes if you have an idea or you have reference, you try so hard to mimic it that you kind of get lost and frustrated at some point, and again you lose the whole point of watercolors, the whole point of, or the magic of watercolors. I think I was reading something about like you use the reference to like inspire your watercolor painting. You don't use watercolors to copy the reference. So that's why having no reference actually loosens you up a little bit. Like you don't have this like tendency anymore to copy. It just makes like for fun kind of. And then we have these very loose coffee and tea mugs. Now on my side, everything is mirrored, so I don't properly see how it looks. So everything is mirrored, so it's not as you see it. But I hope you like the technique and the idea behind it, and you can use it for, like, for example, if you're a coffee person, maybe you can change up the coffee shape of the, like the shape of the mug, or maybe make it even more foamy, less foamy, change the color of the mug, maybe change if you are into latte macchiato or latte, I don't know, any sort of coffee with foam. I think it's the only one. I'm embarrassing myself when I'm talking because I only drink basically just black coffee, so I'm not like expert on anything else. You can experiment different shapes and designs, but basically you can reuse this technique I showed you how to create this foamy effect and the shadows, and also can experiment with shading. Maybe you can even make it at home and use a mug and place it and actually study how the light reflects. And so you add, for example, the blue to the bottom because the blue reflects on the table, for example, and things like that. Yeah. So the videos, like if you just joined, for example, and you're like, what colors are you using, and what is like what is this, and how do you do this, and what happened? Like you can rewatch the replay. It will be up on this channel, and follow along if you just joined. I did my tea and coffee decently, but I butchered my latte. Yes, I think I selected a very tough design, I must say, yeah. But that's why maybe you can also just use a heart, like just a heart shape, and use the same technique to outline the heart. And then it will be easier. Do you use fixative to your painting? No, I don't. How can we blend watercolors easily? This is a very, like, there are so many different ways how you can do this. I can cover this in this live stream. I also have lots of different videos where I talk about supplies that play a huge role, how much water to use. This plays a huge role, like paper, paint, water, everything. It's kind of like a complicated thing to just explain in one video. But basically what I like to use to blend is really having water on the paper. This already helps a lot because if you, for example, struggle with blending because everything looks streaky, having some like water on the paper already helps. Also, if you followed along and you created something by watching my tutorial, I would love to see your results. We have actually an extra Facebook group called Painting Out Loud that you can join. Noelle will probably post a link to this group where you can join and share your art and also see what others created, because always I think it's super important to see what others paint or create, because you sometimes are so in your zone if you're like, okay, this doesn't look good, but then you see everyone created in a different style and it looks amazing, because sometimes you feel like it looks bad just because it's our art. So we have a very weird, disturbed, or how not disturbed, but like very not clear eyes on our art sometimes. So seeing other people's art and how different it can look and how amazing it still looks, this is important, I think. That's why join the group and see what other created. And then also easier for me to see what you create, because if it's in DM, it can get lost. If it's you only share it on Instagram, it can get lost. So I would, if it's in one place like Facebook, I can actually see it and find it. And also others can see it and give feedback and things like that. So I really hope you enjoy this live stream. If you have any questions, again, you can join the live stream, the Facebook group, and ask questions there. And also, you can also leave a comment below this video once it's live. Noelle is my assistant. Can you paint flowers? Maybe. I mean, there are lots of tutorials already, and also on my channel. All right, guys. I hope you really enjoyed my live stream and you've painted along. Again, if you recreated something following this tutorial, share this in the Facebook group. If you don't have Facebook and you don't want to join Facebook, you can also send it over Instagram. But I would love to see it on Facebook because we can exchange all our paintings, and it's super fun. I'm almost out of watercolor paper and all shops are closed. Yeah, I had to buy everything online as well. All right, guys, have a wonderful Saturday. Like I think in Australia it's already Sunday, right? I don't know. I wish you all an amazing weekend and stay safe. I hope everything's still fine. This current time kind of drives me nuts, but I hope it will be over at some point. Oh yeah, Cheryl, thank you. Thank you, Cheryl, again. Yeah, I completely forgot again. If you're nervous, don't forget to breathe slowly. Yes, I don't know. I think I got better a little bit talking on live. Because yeah, when I get nervous, there's so many things happening. I need to focus, but also want to answer you guys. So Cindy said, this was very difficult. You will try again. Yeah, I mean, we had so many different things, and I wanted to do something more challenging, but also kind of keep a few things more simple. So it's always, it's sometimes good to challenge yourself because you learn so much more from challenges than if something's super easy, right? Like that's why there are challenges, so we learn. So I hope you try again if it was hard. And again, yeah, I painted this 6 times now, and everything looks different. So don't worry about anything. Like just have fun and enjoy, and learn. Whenever you apply paint to the paper, there's always so much to learn from. Okay, guys, have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will talk to you in my next video, stream, channel updates. I don't know. Please share a sneak peek of your book someday, the kind of work that you are doing in there. Yeah, if I wasn't a hot mess during the process, I would share more, but I'm literally a hot mess. Yeah, but I will keep you updated, of course. Thank you guys again. Have a wonderful day, weekend, evening, everything. And I will see you on the internet. So see you guys.